History is gonna be made tonight. A program a long time in the making with a lot of really awesome discussions finally hits the internet's airwaves and video waves tonight here on YouTube. We're going to have a great, awesome cast of characters joining a very round table talking about some really great topics. Everything from Star Wars to Westeros to a little bit of Halloween. We're covering all the bases on this rebooted inaugural episode of House of the Empire. You don't want to miss it.
For the love of fandom and the escapism of pop culture.
To the seas of Naboo
and the direwolves of Winterfell.
All the way to the streets of Haddonfield.
Join us as we call the banners for the House of the Empire.
Welcome, one and all, to House of the Empire. Cheers, mate. I don't have any alcoholic beverage, but it is a great time to be a part of this channel because this is something that I feel like has been a long time in the making, and it's finally coming to fruition. We've had people that have wanted to talk about Star Wars in a deeper capacity. We had a program that was strictly dedicated to Game of Thrones. The channel itself has been very Halloween and horror centric for a long time. And this program, this title of the program, is something that has been used on the channel before in a lesser capacity. And now we have the opportunity to make it the flagship program as we steer forward into a new future for this channel. And I'm really excited to be going on that adventure with the people present, with the people that are moderating the chat on YouTube, with some of the special guests that we're going to have on the program in due time. It's a really cool time to be on this channel and to be debuting / re-debuting House of the Empire. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Zach, and I'm here with Randy and Sean, veterans of the channel who are joining on this venture. Sean, tell us a little bit about kind of how we got to this point, because we've done other Game of Thrones shows. You did Star Wars Wastelands for nearly a decade, maybe more. And there have been different iterations of the type of fandom coverage that we're going to do on this channel, but this kind of feels like the culmination of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people watching this and will be watching this if they're not watching live and going, here we go again, another name change, another reboot, and you're right, because frankly, since my heart attack last year, it you really have to go back to that, to when it all changed and things changed and the direction of everything altered. And we're here. I was looking at the wrong camera, but just looking at the right camera.
There you are.
But in a nutshell, there was just too much. We had our show, which we wanted to do weekly, but we knew we could only record bi-weekly. And then Randy, Johnny, and I had the Mask of Fear, which is essentially the revisioned fandom empire from back in the day. And Star Wars Wastelands did kick things off. We'll touch on that momentarily. But just came up with the idea, why the fuck don't we make one show as a team together? And you said it, man. You said just tear the Band-Aid off and be done with it in the private chat to me. So here it is. And it's not going to please everybody. But the simple truth is, this channel doesn't generate anywhere close to the amount of revenue that it used to. I've had a lot going on. We are still going to talk Halloween on this channel because it is a passion of mine. But I think I've been pretty forthright over the years by saying it is not my first love. And if I'm going to continue to do this, I want to have more fun. I want to go back to the way things used to be, rather than worrying about numbers and if we're doing this right or that right. Let's just show up every Monday night with a cast of characters, have a blast, and a couple of drinks for a couple hours, and see where it ends up at the end of the day. We love Star Wars. Star Wars, once again, will be the main topic for the coverage that we do. We love Westeros, and it's really kind of blending the Mask of Fear in with what Bannerman Banter was. It's one show. It's House of the Empire, and so yeah, you get Star Wars, Westeros, pop culture, and some Halloween and horror.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of the best of all the worlds all in one program. Now you don't have to look around for this program or that program. You just tune into one and you get it all in one go. So I'm pretty excited about that. Randy, you've been on some of the Mask of Fear stuff. You've been on some of the Westerosi stuff. You and Sean have done a Ahsoka rewatch. So your hands are in all of those pots, and now we get to make it into one big kettle. What has the journey been like for you, and how do you feel about this launch?
So when I first started, when we were doing like Legacy of Star Wars, and like the very first thing I did was Ahsoka when it first dropped. I was enjoying myself. Getting to talk Star Wars is always a good time for me, just because I grew up on Star Wars. I grew up on the original trilogy, so that's kind of showing my age there in that respect. But as time went on, I mean, I love horror just as much as most people do. I enjoy Game of Thrones, pop culture. I love wrestling, anime, Marvel, DC, all that stuff. So I'm really huge into that all those discussion topics that I'm sure we'll all hit on at some point. But as time went on, obviously, different rebrands and trying to just find that one sweet spot that feels like we're heading in the right direction. And obviously anything we've ever done has always been that step towards the right direction. I feel like now we have a really good opportunity with a solid core to just have some fun, talk about stuff we love, and really put our best foot forward. And here we are with House of the Empire. Little did I know you guys had actually already had something like this a long time ago. So, like, when I just kind of spit the name out, even though it was really House of the Rising
Mhm.
Empire, which what I said,
Mhm.
obviously the light bulb went off with Sean, and here we are.
Yeah, sometimes the best things in life are the ones that just come freely and come naturally. And Sean was talking during the pre-show that it was really fortunate to be able to have all of the some of the naming and the branding and some of the elements that were already saved that can be repurposed and retooled for what we're doing today. Just makes his job that much more easier. It just makes it that much smoother of a transition, allows us to be able to launch, 1 week sooner, 2 weeks sooner, and be able to hit the ground running and be able to talk about some really awesome stuff. And so I'm excited for that. We're going to be divvying up our discussions into different houses to continue the trend of the House of the Empire. So over the course of the next, I don't know, 2 hours maybe, you're going to hear discussions from the House of Skywalker, which will be our Star Wars segment. You're going to hear stuff from the House of Stark, which is our Westerosi content. And then towards the tail end, you're going to have stuff from the House of Haddonfield. And then at the very, very end, we're going to have our Flix Busters segment. That's not going to be a house, but it is going to be a component that is a hearkening to one of our previous podcasts, one of the ones that is very dear to me. I still have one of the t-shirts with the logo on it. You'll probably see me wearing it the deeper into the winter we get, the more I bust out the long sleeve shirts. Flix Busters was one that just didn't gain the traction that we hoped for, but we still found a way to incorporate it into stuff with Bannerman Banter. We're finding ways to incorporate it into this pod as well. And we will review different stuff and give it our ratings and determine whether it is a flick or a bust. And so that's all the stuff that you can look forward to pretty much every episode. And then, like Randy said, we'll have some pop culture. We may throw in some anime when relevant. We may throw in some wrestling when relevant, some racing. I know there was a championship that just had over the weekend. So, whenever the moment strikes, whenever it's appropriate, we'll be able to throw in pretty much whatever we want and just throw it under a different house, throw it under a different banner. And that's one of the things that really excites me because um, I've done a lot of stuff for several years with the IPC podcast, and that was another one of those all-encompassing shows, being able to talk about different things. But it was probably more of a PG program, if I'm being honest. And this one, we get to be a little more PG-13. We get to be a little more R, and that's another element that I'm really looking forward to.
I definitely think we are a hard R style program dating back to the RIPC days. I mean, Wastelands was definitely an R program
No
along with
doubt.
Fandom Empire. And speaking of which, right now, I mean, things can happen to throw things off, but right now, tentatively speaking, 2 weeks from today, House of the Empire's third episode will actually be a Star Wars Wastelands reunion, where you'll see a bunch of old faces if you tuned into our content way back in the day. Tentatively scheduled to appear on that show is the three of us alongside Johnny, alongside Tommy. Obviously, Mondo is scheduled to be back for that one. We also have Ian, who's going to pop in. The dude, which Korea is it again? I always get these mixed up. The one he's allowed to live in. He moved far, far away to go teach over there and hasn't moved back. So he's going to be here. Ben Hart's supposed to stop by. Ty Nelson. It's going to be a just kind of crazy parade of
That's
people
loaded.
over about a 2.5 hour period, and there will be trivia on that week. So Johnny will not be able to say that he didn't know it was coming. He knew damn well a Wastelands reunion meant trivia. So looking forward to that. And then also a big thank you to Johnny and Zach, because we wanted this show to primarily be a 3-person show, occasionally pull in a fourth. We're going to have Johnny on for the Star Wars portion of the show tonight, and then he'll take off for the rest of the show. But Zach's going to be here every other Monday as the host, and then Johnny will be here as a guest host the Mondays that Zach is not. And then for big episodes, you'll have the four of us together. So it really is a team atmosphere. And then modding the shows, we have Tommy B, Matt, and Dustin, who all have options of appearing as guests on the show as time goes. And a big thank you to our channel sponsors who have all stuck through the change. I've talked with them all. Jesse Storytime Spectacular, Jason over at Backtrack Cinema, Ryan at Kaulignation, and Dustin. We really appreciate all that you guys do and all that our patrons do. And also to Zach, because we wouldn't be here without him. Zach the Voice. Definitely check him out.
Well, I think I don't want to speak too far out of turn, but I think the reason that all these people have stuck around is because they believe in you and they believe in the vision. And your vision has always been to have a fun, um, open forum where people can share their thoughts and ideas and be able to uh, disagree within reason when the reason calls for it. But at the end of the day, be able to share those thoughts, be able to share that love of fandom, wherever that avenue may take you. And so I'm excited to see what that may look like for this program. And as you mentioned, um, Johnny is going to be joining us for the Star Wars element. And unless you all have any objections, I think it's time to head over to House of Skywalker. So the thing that we're going to talk about right off the top is the one that is probably the hottest topic in the galaxy far, far away at this point, and we'll go ahead and bring Johnny in when Sean's able to. Um, Johnny, first of all, welcome. Great to have you whenever we can actually hear and see you. I think there he is. And I'll toss it to you first as the Star Wars segment guest. Um, what did you make when the news first dropped from Adam Driver that the hunt for Ben Solo was even something that had been conceptualized to the point that it had? I mean, it had a script, it was being pitched, they were ready to start shooting, and then it got shut down. What did you make of his revelation that that was even something in the works?
Mute
Johnny,
Monster's got Johnny, I think.
it might be.
We got no audio from Johnny at the moment. Someone want to message him in the meantime and see if we can. Oh,
Yep, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
it's
he's back.
yeah.
It's a
Well,
software, right? It's a software. Fuck the
Yep.
software.
Mm-hmm.
always.
No,
It's
I mean,
always
it
the
was
technology.
it was shock. It was of all of the actors, and actresses who were a part of the sequel trilogy, he seemed to be the one who kind of distanced himself the most, from a lot of it. And it was shocking to me that he was the one pushing for it, and this was his project. And I love all the ideas and everything they've said. I was shocked. There was no part, like when this popped up immediately I wrote it off as fake because it just seemed so absurd to me that it just, this is phony, this isn't real. And as more and more people picked it up, and then the actual people involved started commenting on it and confirming the facts behind it, it just became one of those, well, where did this go wrong? And we've learned more and more about where certain people think it went wrong and stuff. It just, it's interesting to me that we're at a point in this project where, like, we're in the point of the story where fans are hearing about it and they're hurt. And I don't know, I mean, that's, to me, my thought process moves to, that's Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. The unfortunate reality of it, for sure. Randy, I'll toss you a similar question. I haven't really heard much of your thoughts on the movie itself and its production slash shutdown. I guess part A is what did you make of the news that it was a thing, and do you wish that it had been able to move forward?
So, like Johnny, I didn't think it was real just because it did seem very absurd in terms of what they were thinking about. But as I kind of sat down and thought about it, I was like, if this is real and they've got a good solid script, maybe they're going to take some time and delve into the mysticism of the Force, which is something that George Lucas always was behind, and Dave Filoni's always been behind, is giving us that look at the Force of not just of it just being there, but of just what it means in terms of just how it can be used for a great many things in general. And I felt like this was a good opportunity but depending on the storyline, using that mysticism to bring Ben Solo back, or to at least find a way to have him return, which we all know, for those of us know that there is a way for him to come back, because technically Ahsoka should have never survived, but she was pulled back in the World Between Worlds. So honestly, I was shocked that Disney turned this down, especially when it was a completed script and they were ready to go. Adam Driver was behind it. And that's another thing, is when someone's passionate about a character, when they want to delve more into it and really bring out just what makes that drives that character. This was a huge opportunity to, for them to put their best foot forward, and probably Adam Driver giving one of his best performances ever because of his love for the character. And it's absurd to me. It's like, do you not like money? And it's like, I see the outpouring on social media for it. And I kind of hope we get a kind of a Deadpool thing here where, Ryan Reynolds leaks the footage and all of a sudden the internet blows up and we get a Deadpool movie. So I'm kind of hoping that's where we're heading.
Maybe a leak of some of the script where the dialogue actually makes a lot of sense and people start campaigning for it to move forward. Speaking of a campaign, Sean, have you seen the change.org petition for this movie to be greenlit and the momentum it's gained in like less than 2 weeks?
I've heard of a couple different petitions for it. I'm just gonna say this movie's happening. Like, this movie it might not be titled The Hunt for Ben Solo, and I can't sit here and promise that Soderbergh will be involved, but there is a episodes 10, 11, and 12 in the writing process right now with Simon Kinberg, who had a big hand in the first 2 seasons of Star Wars Rebels, had a big hand in The Force Awakens, had a massive hand in the X-Men franchise. So I would not be shocked if some of those ideas pivot over to him. That being said, I think Soderbergh is an A-list type director, and if you can make a movie with him, you should. And the idea that it was shelved basically for political reasons is, pretty nonsensical, and there's no reason to put this out. Like, I know they're saying, well, the NDA's, or some people have said the NDA's over. Is it? Is it really over? Because why is every other NDA that has to do with this franchise way longer in term than this one? I don't think it's an accident this has come out. Adam Driver's a smart guy. When we will see it come to fruition, I don't know. But this is the most united I've seen this fan base about something outside of Andor in a very long time.
Andor's probably the exception more than the rule, though, because there's always some sort of discord, and we're gonna be causing some of that discourse in just a little while here when we go through our rankings of all of the films. In fact, I have a bone to pick with you about our show notes. Yes, you, because you said ranking the 11 movies, and I know you said live action, but there's 12 movies, sir, and you excluding one of them is discrimination against animation. So fuck you.
Oh,
Not gonna
It's a
lie,
lot.
that'd be at the bottom of my list. So I'm glad that that's got left off.
I don't know about bottom, but
it would be 11th. It would be 11th out of 12 for me. Pretty hard to take that 12 spot. I think we all know what movie's getting that. I hope so. I hope so. My goodness.
Better get that spot. We'll find out in
Let
just a
me
moment
let me
here.
tell you, man. Karma is coming for you in the next topic. Just you wait.
Me?
No, Johnny.
Okay. I was like, jeez. I haven't had karma. I haven't even had indigestion in a couple of weeks, so I'm sitting pretty right now.
This one might go over Zach's head, but let's just say it's fitting that Darth M. Count is here in person.
Whoosh. Okay, there's another element to the show notes that didn't go into a whole lot of detail, so I'm afraid I'm going to need to toss it over to you because this is one portion that I am just not fluent on and don't want to be talking out of my ass.
So I just finished reading this book. I was looking for my phone. I forgot that I'm on camera on my phone. But I just finished reading this or listening on Audible to this behind-the-scenes Star Wars book that significantly covers like the movie history. Came out earlier this year. It's like a 25-hour listen, and they dive into what George Lucas's sequel trilogy was going to be about. The little information that we got, and just there's a lot of talk out there in terms of what did happen, what didn't happen, who screwed who, what was promised, what wasn't promised. This is what we know. George Lucas in 2012 sold Lucasfilm Limited to Disney. I remember the phone call I received from Johnny that night. To this day, I'm not ashamed to admit I called him a liar, but he was not lying.
with some 4-letter expletives thrown in for color.
Yes. And it turned out he was right. And they did announce episode 7 that day. However, the episode 7 that we got was not the episode 7 that was referenced on that day. When it was sold with the understanding that the sequel trilogy would be made off of story treatments that George Lucas and Michael Arndt had put together. Now, it wasn't promised. It was heavily suggested that they would be the movies they made. But in black and white writing, in the contract, there was a little stipulation that Disney did not have to use those treatments. And despite Bob Iger heavily telling George Lucas that they would, they did not. So,
So he
there's
was
a
the
lot of
one that was the expletive liar.
yes, yes, indeed. Um, just there's a lot of throw shade at Kathleen Kennedy here, or throw shade at George, or throw shade at Bob. It's nice to have some details about specific events. Um, and I think it's relevant to what's going on because with the Hunt for Ben Solo stuff that has come out, I sit here and I go, I think that Disney is getting more involved in some of these situations than people care to admit or maybe even knew of. And I think Kathleen Kennedy has maybe, I can't believe I'm saying this, taking more blame than what's deserved. And I never thought I would say that one, but it appears to be that's what's going on. And I have some thoughts on the Hunt for Ben Solo that I wouldn't mind backtracking to when we get a moment. But specifically on this topic, George Lucas's Star Wars sequel trilogy that he was writing in 2012 with Michael Arndt was going to focus on Darth Maul. Darth Maul, that's right. Because at that point, you got to remember in 2012, Darth Maul was not dead in Star Wars Rebels. He was still very much alive. And his apprentice, this is where they were going to break canon, was going to be Darth Talon, who was from the Legacy of the Force comics, not the novels.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Darth
they were going
Talon
to be.
showed up in Jedi Academy as well. The
Yep.
game.
So she looked a little different in the game, but yes. Yeah, so they were going to be like the two big bads, and it wasn't like a resistance versus the First Order, aka the rebellion versus the Empire. It was after the Empire went down, the New Republic really couldn't properly gain control of everything. There just wasn't enough people to properly police it, so it became a like lawless galaxy. And while the New Republic was a thing, the criminal underworld was taking over. It seemed like George had pulled a lot from his Star Wars Underworld show that he was planning to do that never came to be. Which
Sounds a lot like the Rogue Squadron novel series too, if I'm being
a
honest.
little bit, yes, very much so. And it was gonna Han and Leia were gonna have two kids in it. One's, I think the name was Taryn, I believe, and I can't remember the other was Sam, maybe.
Jason and Jaina.
Essentially, yeah. And Darth Talon would corrupt Sam into joining the dark side. Han, Luke, and Leia were all active in this movie in more of supporting roles. Han was supposed to die in the first movie, and I just feel like everybody, whoever had any hand in this project, knew if Harrison Ford's coming back, we got to kill him. It's the only way we're getting him back. That was a given. But the big bad, as much as the first movie presents Darth Maul and Darth Talon as the big bad, the overall arc of the series has to do with what Star Wars was originally titled about, the journey of the Wills. And they get into what the Wills actually are and how the midichlorians, yes, that's right, midichlorians was going to play a massive part in George Lucas's next trilogy. And essentially, the Wills threatened all of life as we know it. The way it's described feels a whole hell of a lot like the Yuuzhan Vong, only with Force capabilities. And again, people would have hated the idea of midichlorians being brought up, but this all-powerful, almost Force-eaten entity, the Wills, were going to be a big problem for everybody involved. Leia's arc was she was going to become the Chancellor. But yeah, that's not much more is known than that, so we can't go off of a whole lot. But when you compare it to the sequel trilogy we got, fellas, I'll pass it around the table here. But my main thought is, you can knock it because it's midichlorians or the Wills or whatever. And as much as I love The Force Awakens, let's be honest, The Force Awakens, pardon me, is a rehash of Star Wars: A New Hope. It's not shot for shot, but it's damn close in terms of themes and layout and central things that happened during that movie, that happened during A New Hope. I would have liked to see that idea fleshed out more from Lucas and Art, and maybe one day we'll get some weird comic of it. I don't know, but yeah, that's where he was going. He wasn't giving up on the midichlorians thing, so.
He was going to double down on something that should have been folded, but I digress. That's about all I know for poker terms anyways, so you can't get me to elaborate on that anymore. Johnny, the M count and the Wills, is that something you would have paid money to see on the big screen?
Well, I mean, I would have paid money to see it on the big screen anyway, because by hook or by crook, I would have been there. But on its face, like, if that's the basis of it, you better go about explaining it in a way that isn't just midichlorians. Like, you have to put some of the understanding behind it that isn't just, we're trying to science Star Wars. Like, it's not, that's not the place we want science and fact and reality mixed in with Star Wars. Like, every child who's reached their hand out and tried to use the Force to grab something just out of their reach isn't thinking about science class when they're doing it. Like, it's faith. It's deeper than that. And I'm okay with, on its face, like, if you want to go about, tying midichlorians into your ability to attune to the Force as, this essence that is a part of everything. If you want to science it in that way, I guess, but it can't just be no, Force is just midichlorians. Like, that doesn't, I never understood that as a fact of Star Wars, because it just, it never made sense to me. But, like, could they have done it in such a way that I wouldn't have hated the idea of midichlorians and the Wills? And I think the Wills playing into the midichlorians does help, actually, because it adds that external object or thing affecting the Force and the midichlorians that you could probably salvage something decent there. And Darth Maul, I don't hate that. I never hated Darth Maul coming back in Clone Wars. I didn't hate Darth Maul being a part of Rebels. I would have liked a little bit more than his hate fueled him so much that he survived being cut in half. But, like, on the list of ways that Star Wars has explained away characters coming back from what we truthfully believe to be dead, I will take, there was so much hate in his soul that he was able to survive being sliced in half versus, and somehow Palpatine returned. Like, I'll take that all day long because it makes sense. Maul had a lot to be angry at when he was cut in half, from Palpatine all the way down to, his family, just everything. He had a lot of hate to go around that I can, okay, it's like on the extreme of what I'll, suspension of disbelief and all, but it's a better answer than what we got for Palpatine. And I don't hate the idea. Maul's a character I've always enjoyed. I think he was the best part of the Phantom Menace, obviously. So I don't hate the idea of Maul coming back as the villain for the sequel trilogy. I'd like that. It'd just be the story surrounding it. And that would take a lot of work for me to buy into. But there's definitely a possibility there that there was enough meat on that bone from what we've learned since then that I don't hate the idea outright, but I'd have to see it. And again, as if you've been a fan of this channel long enough and the things we've done, you'll know that, for us, it's execution is important. It's the execution of story that's very important. And that would have been sort of the deciding factors, how well they executed that story. If they just sort of shrug their hands and be like, science, I probably would have hated it. But if they'd have gone into it in a meaningful story way while still telling a fun action-packed story, probably would have been great.
Is there any kind of equivalent? I'm gonna throw it to you next, Randy. But Johnny, is there any kind of science fiction equivalent where you get that adventure and the scientific explanation for what you're seeing that Star Wars could have borrowed from to incorporate that into their story? Like the only thing I'm thinking of right off the bat is like Jurassic Park. But like are there other examples out there where you can actually have those moments of science intermingled with
I mean,
moments of Star Wars whimsy and excitement?
I think Jurassic Park is more science, like pure science. Like it's believable in a scientific way that is sort of beyond the extreme, but still sciency enough that you can put the pieces together and be like, okay, science. I think for me, sort of the thing that I'd think of that sort of would blend that science with whimsy and things that make the force is probably Doctor Who. And how you get around things like regeneration and time travel, and you mix the science in with the absurdity, and you come out with Doctor Who. So I think that's probably a bit more in what I would like. Like, I know if you don't watch the show, you probably have no idea and understanding of the points I'm making, but like, the things behind regeneration, especially in the last few years, that has drastically changed the knowledge base on that. You mix the science with the absurdity and you come up with that, and that's more in line with what I would like. Mixing science with absurdity and coming back with good story. That's the important thing at the end of the day.
Randy, looking at all of the things that Sean was encompassing there, the science fiction, the M count, the wills, the types of villains that we were looking at getting, to me, it feels a little incongruous. Like you could either have a Maul and Talon story arc, or you could have one about the lore of midichlorians and the wills. I'm just not personally not seeing them cohesively together as a story. How how would you want those things to coalesce in order to make that trilogy work?
Well, I think if you look at it as a whole, there is, especially if you're looking at a trilogy, there's definitely room to take all of that and by the end have it all just kind of come together and into just where it's like it makes total sense. Uh, Obviously, we don't know all of the home worlds that would be that were going to be visited. There could be just, especially if Maul has an apprentice and he's trying to, maybe some of the stuff from Rebels was a part of that. Maybe some of the things we'd seen in Clone Wars were kind of incorporated into it, where he's on Dathomir or he's going to Korriban, or it really depends on the locations, the character story arcs. But ultimately, and the thing is one of the things I love about Luke is his world building, right? So with what he would have brought to the table, for the worlds he would have built, for the lore and everything that he would have put into it, because we all know it's maybe not the best script writer, but damn, can he just create a world that you just want to live in. And I feel like that's kind of how we would have gotten there. It would have started off as going, what the hell is this? And led us down the path to where it's like, oh, that makes sense. And I really feel like through character development and their personal journeys and things they discover along the way, you're going to have, and it could have been Luke who's slowly just putting it all together through the entire thing, where he had, either him or someone else has that epiphany of, this is what it was all about to begin with. And I feel like one of the things that we've seen through the media through the years is that little bits and pieces of what maybe the wills were or what they could have been. If you think about, like with Clone Wars, what Dave Filoni did with the Mortis gods, what part of that was influenced by what Lucas thought of for the wills? So there's these little pieces that are probably out there that were a part of this 7, 8, 9 for George that just ended up in other media that and ultimately would have given us that actual this is what the wills were, this is what they were about, this is how they influenced things through the use of midi chlorians, which let's be honest, we've seen that they're not everything. I mean, even in the Mandalorian, they tried to bring M count. In the Bad Batch, they had M count, so they still kept, you know, having that scientific outreach, even though ultimately it was just more or less, hey, who's a viable candidate to help bring Palpatine back? I mean, that's really all that was. But still, it's the idea of it was always there in some way, shape, or form. I think through all the Star Wars media we've seen, whether it be comics, books, video games, movies, television shows, I think there's been little bits and pieces of those scripts or those ideas that have been put out there to create one whole gigantic picture of what the wills probably are, or at least what George was looking at as what the wills are, the Force, midi-chlorians, whatever. And honestly, if that hadn't happened, I would have definitely been all about seeing those movies just to see George build those worlds once more, and kind of I'm hoping they would have given me that childlike love that I had when I watched the original trilogy growing up.
I think I don't want to speak for all of us, but I think that lore is one of the things that we all kind of gravitated towards, was just the idea of another galaxy, another world, other beings, and other pieces of a bigger, more mysterious puzzle than what we experience in our day-to-day lives. So if those are things that can continue in any story, then by all means, let's see how it plays out. Um, Sean, any final thoughts on the Lucas trilogy? I know you said you had some Hunt for Ben Solo thoughts that you wanted to try to toss in as well.
I just think, you know, that Star Wars is in this weird place because, like, there were people who seen Rogue One in 2016, and I'm not talking diehards, definitely not diehards, but casual audience members, casual viewers that see, oh, it's a Star Wars movie, I'm going to go see it, who were like, where's Rey? You know, where are the characters from the movie we seen last Christmas? To realize this has nothing to do with that. And Star Wars, as much as I do think there is a little bit of promise right now, is in this weird place again where when you look at their upcoming projects, they're everywhere, right? Like you have The Mandalorian and Grogu, which, you know, it's probably going to be worth the price of admission, but I don't know if I go much further than that. Um, you have Star Wars Starfighter that's being treated like this Nolan-esque like movie in terms of marketing and attention and the direction that they're going with it. You have Dawn of the Jedi, which we don't know much about other than it's being done by James Mangold and one of the writers from Andor. We know Simon Kinberg is working on a trilogy post The Rise of Skywalker that is supposed to be episodes 10, 11, and 12. You have Dave Filoni working on the Ahsoka show, and we assume that there are other shows in development. So things are everywhere. It's hard to follow what's going on, and I do feel like they could benefit from, you know, steering the ship in one direction rather than five directions, but they seem dead set on going that route. So for me, it makes sense to do a Ben Solo film. Look, I think for the wide variety of people, in terms of new characters that came out of that trilogy, the one people liked the most was Kylo Ren. And I would say Rey was a close second, but I don't think Finn got a whole lot of love. I don't think Finn had anything to do in the second movie or even really the third movie. Um, it's a Kylo Ren, Ben Solo slash friggin' Rey trilogy. What does Poe really do in the first two movies? The answer is nothing. He doesn't really do anything. We see him do some fast forward fighting at the end of The Force Awakens. He's barely in the beginning. He sends them on a mission in The Last Jedi and basically tries to take over the ship. And then finally, he has something to do in the worst movie in the trilogy. Um, I think when you have a talent like Adam Driver, you have a talent like Steven Soderbergh, you want to get something like this done. That being said, I still think they are suffering from the same thing they suffered from during the last batch of movies, and there's not one clear direction. And I get it that they want to do this and they want to do that, and I want to see Star Wars movies in all different eras too. But in terms of the general going audience, which is going to drive your ticket sales, I am a little worried with the direction, just in general.
It's a catch-22 because the galaxy is so big and the types of stories you can tell are so vast that sometimes you just try to go in these different directions and see what sticks, see what works. Um, but then if you're not moving forward in a cohesive way and you're not communicating or marketing correctly, the stuff that you're trying to put forth, then yeah, the casual viewer is going to be confused, and it really sucks. But the reality is, if it has the Star Wars logo slapped on it, that name is usually synonymous with fun, with whimsy, with taking your kids to the theater, regardless of who's in it. If it has the word Star Wars in it, like Solo, a Star Wars story, Hunt for Ben Solo, a Star Wars movie, Mandalorian and Grogu, a Star Wars adventure, anything that's got Star Wars in the title somewhere, it's gonna get butts in seats. And they know it. And we know they know it. And we still pay to go see it because we're willing to put in the effort to find out all this shit. But they make us work for it. And that is one thing that I'm kind of annoyed with Disney and Lucasfilm over about this franchise in particular is you have to put in a shit ton of effort to be a fan of this franchise. Whether it's the High Republic, the video games, the comics, the movies, the TV shows, the miniseries, animation, live action, you really have to be in the know in order to be able to keep up with what you need to be excited about. As opposed to, oh, hey, episode 10 next year. That's straightforward. That's easy to keep up with, but they don't make it easy for you. They haven't since Disney bought them out, and I don't think they ever will. But that's just
Very,
me.
very convoluted.
That's just me. And that's coming from having read like 20-ish High Republic novels on the audiobook feature while I'm working. I guess listen to. I can't say that I've read them. My wife calls me out on that a lot. But
Is there really that many now?
oh yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Well, some of them are like the full-fledged novels, some of them are like young adult novels, and then some of them are like junior readers that are only like 4 or 5 hours long. But then they've also got like, I want to say 3 or 4 audio dramas that are really good too, that have like a full cast of voice actors. Um, and then I've done a few Legends novels here and there. I've done both of the Thrawn trilogies. Actually, there's 3 Thrawn trilogies. I think I've done all 3 Thrawn trilogies, if you count Heir of the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command, and then you also read the other 2 canon trilogies. And then I just finished Outbound Flight, which is also a hell of a good book, and Plagueis, which is not canon but should be. But yeah, I think my total on Libby is up to like 27 or something like that since April. So,
Wow, that's awesome.
and a majority of them have been High Republic books. But yeah, when you have that much content out there, it gets convoluted and it gets a little confusing. So I appreciate that there's that much out there, but you really have to be in the know in order to keep up with it. So with that, let's talk about what we do know. which is the 11 live action films, because apparently animation is too fucking ugly to join this party. But part of what we're going to be doing as we kick off our discussion of House Skywalker here on House of the Empire is just laying the groundwork of what do we think of the existing feature-length films that have come out so far. And so we'll go around the horn, going with 11 through 6. We'll just go 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Go to the next person. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. When we finally make it back around all of those again, then we'll go with just our number 5 and a brief explanation. Right, Sean? Is that kind of what we're doing? Just our number 5, go around the horn again, just our number 4, and then go through the medals. So,
For sure. And once we're in the top 5, you can give some reasoning for your pick and where it's placed too.
yeah. But Sean, if we're just going kind of counterclockwise here, why don't you kick us off? We'll go to Johnny and then Randy, and then I'll close us out. You're 11 through 6.
Well, in an absolutely shocking turn of events, the 11th ranked Star Wars live action movie on my list happens to be the gem known as somehow Palpatine. The Rise of Skywalker. I literally have nothing positive to say about that abyss of a movie, and I want to say that, really quickly before I go anywhere else with this, and I'm not going to get into it for each movie, but I was someone who, when The Last Jedi came out, was like, well, whoever does the next movie, I hope they just tell Rian Johnson and his direction to stick it, which is essentially what The Rise of Skywalker does. And the movie is worse for it. And since that time, I've definitely come around more on The Last Jedi, and I don't hate the movie by any means. I find it acceptable, but I'm looking for more than acceptable out of my Star Wars movies. But yeah, Rise of Skywalker at 11, Last Jedi is at 10, followed by number 9, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Number 8, Return of the Jedi. Number 7, Attack of the Clones. And this pained me that this one didn't make my top 5. Number 6, The Phantom Menace.
Bro, we're gonna have some words in a few minutes.
Looking forward to it.
Sir, how dare you look down on the Return of the Jedi as badly as you did?
I thought I was generous to Return of the Jedi, having it at, let's see, where did I have it? 11, 10, 9, 8. Yeah, I had to really think if I liked Return of the Jedi more than Solo or The Last Jedi.
Johnny, it's to you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you thought we'd have a consensus 11. We don't. 11 is Attack of the Clones. I'm sorry. The writing is just so bad. I can't get over it. The action in the last third does not make up for the terrible writing in the first 2/3. And that's just the way it is. It's no thank you, no sir. 10 is Rise of Skywalker. That one is just yuck also, but at least the writing makes sense to me, and it doesn't have any super duper.
The writing makes sense to you?
I don't mean from a story perspective. The story makes less sense. I'll give Attack of the Clones that. It has the more coherent story, but the writing is not a bunch of trained monkeys writing on a typewriter like George did in Attack of the Clones. 9 is The Phantom Menace. 8 is The Last Jedi. 7 is Solo. And 6 is Return of the Jedi.
This is going to get interesting.
I'm beginning to think that Zach has a higher standing for Return of the Jedi than we do.
I wouldn't hate somebody putting it in the top 5.
You may be right. You may be wrong. We'll find out. Randy, it's to you.
Some of these are kind of surprising because I think they've changed some since from when we did our original rankings when we first started this. So for me, 11 is Rise of Skywalker. Number 10 is Attack of the Clones. Number 9 is The Last Jedi. Number 8 is Solo. Number 7 is The Phantom Menace. And number 6 is Rogue One.
We got 7. We didn't get 6. He broke out.
6, I had Rogue One.
Ooh.
Interesting. That may be one of the hottest takes. Sean, you do you still have your list accessible?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I really only missed out like on maybe one film. So
Okay, so I'll recap mine.
I had here's mine. I had
Yep.
and I think this may be where we had it flipped. I had Last Jedi at 11 and Rise of Skywalker at 10. You had those inverted, right?
Oh yeah,
Rise of Skywalker was 11 and Last Jedi 10.
Yeah.
But then you had Solo at 9.
Yep.
Which is where I have Solo. You had Return of the Jedi at 8.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I've got Return of the Jedi. You had Attack of the Clones at 7.
Yep.
I had Attack of the Clones at 7. Like, this is crazy, man. But then I think the only other area where we split, I have The Force Awakens at 6.
Yeah, not I on that front.
But I'll give some justifications for my 5 momentarily. But that's kind of interesting. The mentality, the train of thought that we have for some of the bottom tiers was very very nearly identical from like 7 through 11. That was
Yeah.
interesting.
You know, I do understand why you have The Rise of Skywalker ahead of The Last Jedi. We know what a massive Knights of the Old Republic fan you are, and that movie having the red stormtroopers that you see in that movie, actually, a legion of them, if you look in the dictionary, is the Revan Legion. So I understand why you couldn't resist putting that movie ahead of The Last Jedi.
Sir? I beg your absolute fucking pardon. I
Shit.
am the voice and it has left because I am speechless at the bombastic bullshit you just spewed from your mouth.
Who's bringing out the big words?
I might need another drink, and at this rate, Zach might need about 5 of them.
Hey, this is my mini liquor I keep on my desk for emergencies, and this may constitute. God damn. No, as little as you had to say about Rise of Skywalker, that's how little I have to say about The Last Jedi. I find I still to this day find next to nothing redeeming about that film. I find it incongruous. I find it inconsistent. I find it a disrespect to the lore and the characters. I find the choreography to be grating. I find the writing to be inconsistent at best. And there's very little about it that I find enjoyable. If somebody took like the eyeball openers from the Saw franchise and forced me to watch the movie, that may be the only way I sit through the entire fucking thing without pretending like I have to go take a shit for 20 minutes.
Wow. Alrighty then. Well, yeah. We know how you feel.
I'm
sure.
beginning to think that Zach's not going to join us for a Last Jedi watch party.
Fuck
Well, if
no.
he is, there's just going to be a really long bathroom break in it.
It will be a lot of fart noises from 30 feet away. On to our top 5 with that note. Sean, you're number 5, sir.
Coming in at number 5 for me is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. I seen this movie, I never know the exact amount, but I'm estimating seen this movie 7 or 8 times before I ever seen any other Star Wars movie. Because I didn't own the movies. A New Hope would come on TBS Superstation all the fucking time, but they'd never play the other movies. Um, it's a slow beginning for that movie for sure. It doesn't move particularly quick. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of the first 25 minutes of the movie, if I'm being honest. The first 5 minutes there on the Tanta 4 are fantastic. It's everything you could want. But it's not until we really get to the Mos Eisley Cantina where things really start to pick up and the movie is just kind of nonstop from that point on. And then as a kid, that space battle, the trench run on the Death Star, that changed movies for me. Like it honestly did. I was never more mesmerized than watching that battle. That's probably why I watched the movie 7 or 8 times before ever seeing the next one.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nostalgia to the original one. Johnny, what about you?
Well, for me, starting off the top 5 was episode 7. Of the sequel trilogy, it was the best. Not exactly a high bar, let's be honest. But it was because it hadn't made all of the mistakes of its future sequels. In that first one, it hits you with a very heavy dose of nostalgia, which I think was called for, which felt good. The story was, for itself, a good set for what would come or what should have come later. Obviously, very little of it paid off the way we expected it to, but it set the table very nicely. That coming out of that, and I can't speak for others, but for myself, coming out of that movie, it felt like a top 3. It was, obviously the recency bias was very strong, but, coming out of it, it felt like a solid top 3 Star Wars film, to the point that, there was at different points debate, is it better than other films that will come later in this list? And, it just, it hit all of the parts it needed to hit. The cast was good. The nostalgia was great. Yes, we were missing, obviously, some part of the big 3 not being there, but the moments that hit hard. I think all of us as a collective fan base, when we first saw Han in the was it the Super Bowl trailer, I think
so.
Around it was.
You got yourself muted.
You were
Sean.
muted. Saw the lips moving, but no words.
Star Wars Celebration.
It's okay. I couldn't remember which one was the Chewie we're home, but we all saw that moment. Everyone just collectively, the fan base was in awe of it, because it was something we never thought we'd see. I mean, of all the big 3, it was always Harrison that would be the least likely to show up in a future Star Wars project. And there he was, front and center. And it hit all the moments. It hit everything it needed to hit. The story was good, harken back to the original trilogy well enough. So yeah, episode 7 is my number 5.
That's fair. It was just on the outside looking in for me, but for very similar reasons. It was fun, but it was safe. And I think that may have been one of the reasons why it was just barely out for me, but very, very close. And it alternated quite a bit. I think I had it as high up as number 4 at one point. Randy, it's to you.
So my number 5 is basically before it was known as Episode 4 No Hope. It's Star Wars. Like for me, that was my first Star Wars experience. I was maybe 3, so roughly right before Empire came out. I finally got to see it. Obviously, being in awe of just the creatures, the locations. Obviously, like similarly to Sean, the trench run is what had me. Like even when it came to playing video games, even at that young of an age, I love those types of games. So getting to see that and watch it over and over again and wear out a VHS tape because I watched it so much as a kid. It was one of those things that just it had me captivated. And my uncle tells me there's more coming out, so obviously I'm eager and hooked. But yeah, uh, I think just it's a classic movie that just, even after what George did with it in terms of just upgrading and trying to make it to fit his vision, it still holds up. And hell, take out his vision, and the original still holds up pretty well today, in my opinion. Maybe minus the lightsaber effects, but can't have it all, right?
It was something that had never really been done before, and probably, if we're being honest, is still having trouble being replicated today. So it's good. It's good stuff. My number 5 may show what a millennial I am, but my number 5 is going to be the Phantom Menace. And I have 2 reasons, well, maybe 3. The number 1 reason, though, why this one is in my top 5 and generally stays in my top 5 is because of my brother. He is on the spectrum, and he and I are about 2 years apart. And even though we're about 2 years apart, we live very different lives and have very different interests. And you would think that guys who are 2 years apart would probably be like in the same fantasy football league and would be playing video games together, and probably, we're on the same high school sports teams trying to, build each other up, make each other better. I didn't have any of that. And when it wasn't a talking vegetable making him laugh, it was Jar Jar Binks. And so there is a deep-rooted family nostalgia involved for me in watching The Phantom Menace, because it was the one Star Wars I could really genuinely convince my brother to watch on a regular basis. And it allowed me to have that sense of quote unquote normal for 2 hours. Maybe it's not the best Star Wars, but it's got the best memories associated with it for me and my family. So that'll be my main reason why it's my number 5.
Yeah, I couldn't argue that as a number 1 reasoning.
Good reason to me.
Yep.
On to our number 4s then. Sean, you're up.
Number 4 for me is Rogue One. Rogue One, I would probably say was around 7 for me. And this is one of those examples where Andor enhanced Rogue One so much. One of those cases where a prequel just really added to the movie. I think you can say what you want about the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, but I think Revenge of the Sith enhances the original trilogy. But what Andor does for Rogue One, my God! When we all watched Rogue One together after Andor, and what it does to that movie, it's like seeing it again for the first time, because you are looking at it through a different lens. I sat here with my list, and I can honestly say I had a very difficult time deciding if Rogue One was going to be 4 or if something else was going to be 4. And Rogue One would end up being 3. Like, again, I don't want to praise Andor too much because this isn't the show to do, or the episode to do that on, but Tony Gilroy really did, as much as he possibly could with that show. And not only did it benefit that show, it benefited other properties too. It even enhances A New Hope, in my opinion. So, kudos to Rogue One.
That's really cool. Johnny, what about you?
No, for me, it's also Rogue One for all the reasons Sean just said. Going into it, a few years ago, if you'd have told me that Rogue One would jump up your list because of a show you think is terrible, I never would have believed you. But once we started doing the watch through, here on the channel, and we got past those first 2 episodes, and I finally got to actually start seeing Andor as a good show, it changed drastically. And then the second season, we watched through that, and then did the rewatch of Rogue One, and like Sean says, we're not here to talk about Andor. That's an entirely different list, but the effect it had on the viewing experience, making you it took, in my opinion, the one character that you were supposed to care about the most in Cassian, and they told you the least about him. They sort of tickled your appetite, showing him as you know the rebel without morals. When in what you saw in Rogue One, you it painted a very different picture of the Cassian Andor we would learn he was watching through that series, and it humanized him so much more, that made you understand his decisions in Rogue One so much more, and it you know it changed so much. Like, when we watched that movie, there was a large portion of us that, like, oh well, there's your ship, you know it's Jin and Cassian, that's the relationship, and they're holding hands on the beach at the end of the film, that's their, and looking at each other, looking at the stars, that's the I love you. It's not even remotely that. And Andor paints that picture for you much more beautifully, that it changes so much about that it redeems Cassian so much more to the things he does and the way he acts, having seen the things he's gone through to get to that point, that it makes the entire movie so much better than what it was. Like, it takes the one part that I thought was the weakest and makes it the strength of the film, and it just catapults it up. That, like Sean said, I had a lengthy internal debate once that we got the notes that this is what we were doing. Is this 4 or is this 3? And I'd say it came down to almost a coin flip, with one thing making that decision for me that this one didn't have, which we'll get to when we get to the 3.
I'm really curious about these bronze medals now. You're really making me wonder. So, not gonna rush you, Randy, but I am curious about people's 3s now. What's your 4 though?
So for me, number 4 is The Force Awakens. Uh, Part of it is the nostalgia bait, but also for me, it's just like waiting for so long for new Star Wars and to get to revisit that galaxy far, far away, and to see characters that I grew up and fell in love with as a kid. And obviously, whether it be playing video games or reading books, comic books, whatever, growing up through my teens, 20s, 30s, it's like getting to see these characters again for the first time, and to see them, how much they've changed, how much they've grown, and that it sold me right then and there. Obviously, you know, like you guys were talking about, having the reveal at Celebration, and but it was one of those emotional moments where it, like, you didn't think it was ever going to happen again. You didn't think you were going to see Han and Chewie together again on the Falcon, and you know that movie had me, riveted to my seat. Um, I was just mesmerized just to get to see everybody again, get to see the new characters come in. And I was very fortunate to know somebody who bought out the entire theater and sold tickets to his friends who are all like-minded Star Wars fans. And it was also an adults only theater where you had to be 21 or up to get into. So everybody's drinking, having a good time, reacting the same way. And that experience alone, just that's one of the reasons why it sold me on
Mhm.
this easily being in my top 5. And it's, as time's gone on, I still say that this is why it's my number 4, is just the overall experience I've had with the movie, with people who share the same passion. And I mean, yeah, there's a good movie there too. It's not just the fact that it's the experience on top of it. It's a good movie, and it was a good launching off point. I just kind of wish they would have done more with it, but that is a topic for a different discussion.
It's interesting that you mentioned the experiential component of it, because I got to experience The Force Awakens at a little movie theater in southern Mississippi with some other like-minded Star Wars fans. And then we ended up potting in the hotel room across the street for a couple of hours after that. And then there was like a um, like a midnight or a 1 a.m. screening at another theater. And we were able to like finish our evening watch and our review and then go back and see it again with more people. And so the the experiential component of it is definitely something to consider in the decision making process, because that first impression ends up becoming like a lasting impression for sure. Um, for me, my number 4 is going to be A New Hope. Um, Similar to Randy and to Sean, there are elements of this film that, while dated, are things that were a part of my upbringing. You know, if I didn't enjoy this film, I'm not enjoying the rest of the franchise. Hell, I'm probably not sitting here tonight if I didn't like that movie. And so, while there may be things to critique, there are also things to look at in a more objective standpoint, saying this was groundbreaking for its time. And the type of story that it tells, the way that it tells it, the music that takes you along for the ride, there are so many positives to take away from this, and so many things to enjoy after its release, that it's almost a disservice to not have it in the top 5. Because if you don't have the original as a part of your favorites list, then I personally feel like you're missing the point. You're missing the mark uh, of what Star Wars is supposed to be, and that foundation is laid in the '77 film. Okay, we're into the medals now. We're getting our bronze medals out if we're doing a Star Wars Olympics. Sean, kick us off.
Number 3 for me goes all the way back to a little thing of mayonnaise on a dinner table. I've told this story before, but before we went to see The Force Awakens, there was about 6 of us that went out for dinner that night. Johnny was one of them. And we had one of the most rude, ignorant waitresses I've ever experienced in my life, to a point. Not only was she not doing her job properly, she was downright insulting. So when it came time to leave the restaurant, which was in the same plaza as the movie theater, my tip for her was to tip the mayonnaise upside down onto the table. Um, I firmly believe treat people how you want to be treated. And I felt like she took the mayonnaise and poured it all over her head that dinner. It was a terrible experience, but the experience that followed that up, seeing The Force Awakens opening night with the man beside me here, was incredible. It was nostalgia fueled. I remember turning to him and saying, just in terms of the introduction scene with Oscar Isaac and Max von Sydow and everything that occurs there, I said to him, "This is one of the best openings for a Star Wars movie." Um, and it just had me from there. The cast is great. It's the one movie in that trilogy that feels like got an appropriate amount of time to develop. And while they didn't use George Lucas's main ideas, there's a lot of smaller ideas in this movie that are directly from Lucas's treatments. So there's a little more Lucas in this movie than previous movies. And while we didn't get the big three together, I thought Han Solo in the movie is obviously the star outside of the new characters, and he's incredible. We waited so long to see Harrison Ford return as Han Solo. I thought it was everything it needed to be. But then the thing that I don't think gets enough credit is Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens. He's not in it much, but the movie is about him. He is the MacGuffin. You are trying to find Luke Skywalker basically for the duration of the movie, so that when we see him at the end of the movie and Rey's all emotional and she's swelling up in tears and holds the lightsaber out and Luke's, intensely looking at her, and we cut to the credits with the promise of another adventure, it's amazing. uh, um, and then you follow it up with the fucking over the shoulder throw, and like it's The Force Awakens as a movie itself, is it too much like A New Hope? yeah, it's not innovative enough. Say what you want about George Lucas's prequel trilogy and his sequel trilogy ideas, he was always pushing innovation, and that movie doesn't do it, but it does just about everything else, and I love it for that. So it's number 3. It barely edges out Rogue One.
Fascinating. But
And for,
I love a good story that goes behind the story. That's always really fun.
to those hearing that story and thinking, "Oh, he just tipped a mayonnaise bottle upside down." No, this was not a bottle. It was one of those little metal serving tins that had no top, no cover. Just
Oh, so you
upside
tipped the
down.
ramekin over?
He
Damn.
tipped a ramekin of mayo on the table. It was not a squeeze bottle that was just tipped up down to make a little mess. This was a full ramekin of mayo tipped upside down and left behind.
Yeah, hey, it's one thing to be
I'm not
having an
arguing.
off day. It's one thing to be having an off day, but when you're a bitch over the course of a 1-hour meal to everybody at the table, fuck you. As the Joker said in the Joker, you get what you fucking deserve.
Hey, I can't say anything. As we left the store, I said, you probably should have left the tip under it.
That would have been classic.
So
I
I
wasn't
don't.
that smart.
Well, that was
I-
because I didn't think of it until we were walking out.
I have a question, and maybe this is just the Texas in me. Why the fuck do your tables have entire ramekins of loose mayonnaise?
Some people like to dip their French fries in mayonnaise.
They what?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Actually, I will
What?
specify. I am fairly certain that the ramekin of mayonnaise was provided to me for my burger,
Oh well, I had one that I had.
not for fries. Now
I've
you
been
might have
dipping-
asked for it for your fries,
stuffing
but that
some
is
poutine into it, yeah.
oh, and mayo on fries. Why are you acting like that's surprising? That's you ever watch
Right?
Pulp
Like-
Fiction?
fucking phenomenal. Oh,
For
we've
what?
scared Zach
I'm
off.
half Dutch.
Zach,
That is
Zach
all they
is currently
do.
indulging in his emergency liquor as we speak.
Look at that. You
We
pushed
might-
him over the edge.
Yeah, well, it's episode 1. We might need to send a wellness check out
Of
over
all-
on Zach.
All the things that push you over the edge to alcohol is mayo on French fries. I mean, that's
I mean,
It's just
suppose.
a
I mean, if people
normal
do
thing.
fries and frosties, I guess I can't say much. So
fries
No.
dipped in a milkshake is shockingly good.
you get sweet and salty.
I will concede that when it comes to like a Wendy's Frosty, but that is not mayonnaise.
You're right. It is.
No, but that's a mayonnaise and fries is a more traditional thing. I don't
Those
know.
are very no. I'm sorry.
Wait, hang on. Are you suggesting ruining a Wendy's Frosty with French fries? Is that what's happening
Have
right
you
now?
never done that before?
dude,
Oh, I know people that have, but I'm just not
Dude.
for it.
dude, chocolate Frosty. Don't do the vanilla. Get a
Exactly.
chocolate Frosty.
No,
It's-
I think you're just wrong. Just in general,
Fucking
as long as
terrible,
it's a good.
man. It makes it better because then your Frosty is salty.
Shout out to my deceased Uncle Ray. I wish that I would have had the opportunity to have him and Zach at a dinner together and to see the look on Zach's face as he puts mustard on his spaghetti would have been
What?
absolutely spectacular.
What? Are you fucking kidding me?
He's not.
Mustard on spaghetti? What
He's
the
not.
hell, man?
Not a ton, but he would put a little bit of mustard on his spaghetti, yeah.
I've heard this story a great many. I never got to experience it, but I've heard the story from multiple people within his family.
Yes,
Zach's
his
died
son will
over there,
confirm
man.
it. And occasionally he would put a little bit of mustard on a plain donut.
I don't have the words. I don't have the words. Johnny,
this is the
Back
show.
is
This is
ruined.
what the show's about.
I gotta get us back on track. I think we're at Johnny's
I'm
bronze
for
medal.
3,
Yeah.
Yes. My bronze medal is A New Hope. It is the foundation on which this entire franchise is built upon. It is, for most of us, the first one we ever saw. It just all of those things wrapped up into one, make that film it for me. It's the one I remember most watching as a kid. Before that, I remember waiting in line at Walmart to buy the trilogy in 1997. It's
The
It's a huge-
VHS gold box edition.
absolutely.
Yep, I
day
remember
came
those.
out, you know,
I thought it was a
and
steal that you could get a combo trilogy pack of that for $40 at Walmart.
yeah, just, you know, all of those nostalgia things. It's the foundation of the entire franchise. You know, it set the tone, it set the pace, it gave us an idea of what we were in for, and it was just a phenomenally amazing story. You know, that just hooked you very quickly, very fast, and never let you go. You know, so that's it. A New Hope is my podium. It's my bronze, and it got it over Rogue One strictly because of that nostalgia. You know, if it's ranked purely on which one I think is the better film, it's Rogue One. If it's ranked on the encompassing package, then it's A New Hope.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, Randy, you're up.
So my number 3 is ranked solely on nostalgia because of the experiences that I actually had with this movie. My number 3 is actually Return of the Jedi, and I'll tell you why. So before cosplaying was a thing, my uncle actually got like a little gig with his friends where for a local radio station decided to put on like a little cosplay slash just little interaction with the fans at the movie premiere. And I was old enough and short enough that he decided to have me play Yoda. So basically, my mom made a gray robe and he got the rubber mask for me, and I would just be there. And he played Luke. His friend was tall enough to be Vader. Like they did a whole lightsaber duel without it really being uh, crazy. But it just between that and the fact that that was my Christmas Eve movie. Like literally, I would not be able to sleep at Christmas Eve. I would pull that out and I would watch it. And yeah, it was just one of those things where it was as a kid, it was my favorite Star Wars movie of all time at that point. And yeah, just like I said, pure nostalgia purposes, that's why it really is my number 3. That I have no problems putting it on at any time, just because um, I just enjoy it so that much. And yeah, if I went purely on quality, it would be lower on the list. But I just can't. I can't do that to it. Not given the years of service it has provided me as a kid. I can't. I just can't do that to it.
Okay, that's fair. Um, are we at my bronze medal? I guess we
Correct.
are. Okay. Um, this may be where some of the hot takes start coming in as we get into higher and higher places on the list. Might catch some flack for this, but I honestly at this point am too tired to give a shit. Um, my bronze medal is going to be Revenge of the Sith. There are definitely a lot of really, really redeeming things about it, and it probably is, yeah, it is the best of the prequel trilogy. I have a lot of nostalgia associated with Phantom Menace, and Phantom Menace is probably more rewatchable for me than Revenge of the Sith, because as good of a piece of cinema as that film is, it is very heavy to watch, and it's not one that I can just casually put on. I have to be in the right headspace and be emotionally invested for it because of all that it does. The changing of the guard from the old republic to the new empire, the evolution and de-evolution of certain characters, the types of world building that it does, the types of action pieces, the set pieces, the plot twist of Order 66. There's just a lot in this movie, and a lot of it is excellent, and it is worth all of the accolades that it gets. I just have a couple of others that I place a little higher above it in terms of not just quality of film, but also rewatchability factor. Out of the top three, Revenge of the Sith is the least rewatchable for me. So there's my three. We're on to our number 2s, our silver medals. Sean, you are up.
I felt like that was payback for bringing up the mustard and spaghetti thing. Uh, but we're all entitled to our own opinion. I think Revenge of the Sith, I do agree with its dark tone and deep narrative subject. There's some intense subject matter in there, obviously, but I think Revenge of the Sith is the most rewatchable Star Wars film there is. And it's number 2 for me. 5, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lightsaber duels in one movie, and none of them are shit, is incredible. The score for Revenge of the Sith, I'll go ahead and say it. It's the best of any Star Wars movie, period. Original trilogy, sequel trilogy. There is not a bad piece of music in that movie, although that movie does reuse original trilogy music a lot in the last act of the movie. It's just John Williams knocks it out of the park. The CG in Revenge of the Sith is such a massive step up on Attack of the Clones. You watch those movies back to back, maybe you go, make some lunch or something in between, but watch both movies on the same day, essentially. And the visuals from one compared to the other are night and day. I think they realized after Attack of the Clones that maybe they went too blue screen heavy and they wanted to do more miniatures with Revenge of the Sith combined with green screen. It was blue screen in Attack of the Clones, green screen in Revenge of the Sith. But it's just great, and like it's Hayden Christensen's best Star Wars movie. Ewan McGregor is fantastic in it.
That's not
Ian
saying much. He has
No,
2 movies.
Yes. Attack of the Clones was not great for him. Ewan McGregor's fantastic in Revenge of the Sith. Ian McDiarmid's fantastic in Revenge of the Sith. The only thing I thought they really copped out on was the Order 66 stuff at the Jedi Temple. I'm not saying we needed to see a bunch of children die on screen, but we definitely could have seen more of adult Jedi in the temple, going up against the clone troopers and Anakin. And a lot of it was filmed and got cut. But there's a 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith that surfaces. No, I'm not talking about combining it with Clone Wars Season 7. There's an actual 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith. So I don't think we'll ever see it, but would have been fun. And then, but by the way, it's the greatest lightsaber duel ever. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Battle of Heroes, just fantastic.
Yeah, I can't argue against that.
Can't and won't. We are still in agreement with my silver medal. It's episode 3. Everything you said is all factual. It is head and shoulders above anything else in the prequel trilogy. And it just, like you said, the fight scene is easily the best one in Star Wars history. The music, like you said, Battle of Heroes is one of the best. It's a top 5 John Williams piece, which is saying something. With a catalog and history as depthful as that is, and it just, like you said, Hayden brought his best performance to it, which isn't to say much considering we already discussed the writing of Attack of the Clones. So
quickly on Battle of Heroes, I just read or listened to this in that Star Wars documentary audiobook. Is George Lucas wanted them to use Duel of the Fates for it, and John Williams said, I mean, ultimately it's Lucas's choice, but he's like, I've really been actually planning this one theme for this battle. Will you let me play it for you and then make the decision? And that's what ended up sticking, and they moved Duel of Fates over to Yoda and Sidious.
When John Williams says, I've got an idea, you stop and listen to whatever it is. That's for sure.
For Jaws, It was just 2 notes.
didn't need it anymore.
Dun, it's what Zach's gonna hear every time he sees mustard now.
No, I'm gonna hear that meme of the imam who says, "Brother, what's that? What's
That's a
that,
fair
brother?
response to that idea.
Brother, brother Randy, your silver medal is up."
And my silver medal is Revenge of the Sith. It's hard to add on to everything here, so I'm going to try to do a couple little pieces here. The opening space battle was absolutely amazing. It's one of the things that Star Wars was built on in the original trilogy that I felt like they didn't give enough to at times, and they really made up for the lack of one, the lack of just doing it in general in this one. As a kid, when you first watched Star Wars the first time, the space battle gets you, and they continued to have variations of it, whether it's uh, Return of the Jedi with the final battle of with the second Death Star, or even in the Phantom Menace you had space battles. So this was like the space battle, end all space battles, and we're introduced to Grievous for the first time, and it's so fun, but it's hard to ignore that the lightsaber duels were all epic. Every little hint about Anakin turning to the dark side, and you get to see that every time he's on the screen, there's always something that keeps pushing him further and further and further and further to the point of where he just snaps. And that was so fun to watch. Like, we all knew he's becoming Vader, but one of the things I always enjoyed about it is the fact that we didn't know how he got there, and this really drove that point home. Like Sean said, Ewan McGregor's performance amazing. I remember when I saw it opening weekend, tearing up at just because you're my brother, Anakin, and like that whole scene there just got me. Like, just because I'd grown to really appreciate and love these characters, and it was heartbreaking to see that much pain in Obi-Wan's face, and so like the movie just hit on all cylinders for me.
Yeah, I mean, the opening space battle was a tone setter, and I think when I watched Last Jedi, I got disappointed because they tried to do an opening space battle, and you just cannot hope to come close to comparing to those first 20 minutes. It's not going to happen. And no matter how much you try to make it resemble that, or how much you try to make it resemble maybe like a scene from like a World War II flick or what have you, um, it's just inevitably going to get compared to the Battle of Coruscant. And nothing in animated or live action has come close or ever will come close to it. So, um, my silver medal is going to be Rogue One. It has bounced around in different places at different times, but it's landed at number 2 for me at this point in my life. I find it the most rewatchable. I find it the most enjoyable. I find it to be the one that I catch myself wanting to go back and watch again the most. I really enjoy the characters. I really enjoy how much guerrilla warfare there is involved in this. It feels like a war flick that is set in a different world, that's set in a different galaxy. Um, I really love the characters. I love the humor. I love the sacrifices that are involved at the final portion of the film. I love the phrase about how rebellions are built on hope. I think that is something that everybody needs to be reminded of sometimes, especially given certain political climates of the last few years. Um, and I think that yes, Andor definitely enhanced it, but I continue to be surprised and impressed by that film every time I watch it with or without the context of Andor. There's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of really solid acting to it. And the fact that it is able to tell a story so compelling and convincing all on its own, and yet simultaneously blend in seamlessly with a movie that came out 40 plus years before it is just amazing. I don't think I have ever seen a quote unquote prequel or any other movie that's a part of another franchise so seamlessly tie into another movie in that same franchise. Like, I think of things from Alien, I think of things from Marvel and DC, I think of so many different franchises, and I cannot find one that ties in to another film in the series the way Rogue One seamlessly transitions into A New Hope. And so, yeah, I watched it 7 times in 7 days when it first came out, and all in different venues with different people. I saw it in California with a bunch of friends at the Chinese theater in Hollywood for opening night, which was a really, really cool experience. I came back to town and I saw it with friends, with people from church, with relatives. Everybody kept hitting me up saying, "Hey, do you want to go see the new Star Wars? My treat." And I'm like, "Heck yeah, I'll keep that streak alive." And so um, there's a lot of great memories associated with it as well, but it's definitely the one that I find myself watching the most and enjoying the most for a multitude of reasons.
I feel
So
like quickly, I feel like Andor, Rogue One, and New Hope has almost become like its own trilogy.
to an
Obviously,
extent,
a lot of episodes in Andor, but those three
I
things
can see
fit
that.
together
Yeah.
so well. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, unless I have zoned someone out here.
I think we have a
That
consensus number one.
that
Oh, yeah.
means we have a consensus
We do.
number one. So on the count of three, once I get to three, we're all gonna say it at once. And then we'll start with Zach and go around the round table. Zach hasn't got to start. He's always last one to go. So on 1, 2, 3, the Empire
Empire
Fire
Strikes
Strikes
Back.
Back.
Yeah.
Zach,
Yeah.
take it away. Why Empire?
Um, it's pretty much a perfect film. Like as far as cinema goes, as far as storytelling goes, character development, world building, continuing to grow your characters, to grow your story, to continue your lore by adding depth and meaning to what your characters are supposed to be about, and why they're fighting for what they're fighting, and the recognition that the fight is nowhere near over. You get a real sense of the rebellion's desperation living on an ice planet in the first sequence. You get a sense of the Empire's desire to quell this rebellion with things like the chase scene through the asteroid field. You get a better understanding of what it means to be a Jedi by learning from Yoda, and you get a better understanding of the characters and their connections to one another and how much they rely on each other and how much the galaxy is relying on them in order to try to find ways to make things right. Um, I can't think of a single flaw with this film. I have tried, and I literally cannot find anything wrong with this movie. Everything hits on the right notes. It is a perfect 10 out of 10. And it is the gold standard for how sequels are supposed to be. Anytime a movie makes a sequel, it gets compared to The Empire Strikes Back because it is the standard for how you continue a story from something that laid a great foundation, that was a great story in its own right, and then you actually find a way to make it better. It is such a rare thing for sequels. It is such a rare thing for franchises to be able to build on itself the way Empire built on A New Hope. And it's nothing short of a cinematic masterpiece.
I I truly believe this to my core that it is the greatest movie ever made, period, in all of cinema. I think whenever we do it for Flix Busters, by the way, The Phantom Menace is our Flix Busters movie tonight, people. Like for me, it's a perfect score. Like it just is. It's an unattainable bar to reach. I don't think in my lifetime we will ever sit here and go, yeah, that movie will be as good as The Empire Strikes Back or better. I don't think you can do it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think it's highly unlikely, and I don't think Irvin Kershner gets enough credit. You know, George Lucas seems to get all the credit for the original trilogy, but people seem to forget that Irvin Kershner directed that film, and you know, just one hell of a job.
It's true. It's true. Randy, your thoughts on Empire?
Like I said, as a kid, I'd have said Return of the Jedi, but as an adult, as I grew up to understand the characters and like everything that you kind of tend to learn as you grow up, that's why one of the reasons Empire became like my number one all time, because it had everything. There was comedy, there was romance, there was action, there were scenes of horror, and like they actually, it's that whole idea going into Dagobah by itself. That's straight out of a damn horror movie. Like it had a little bit of everything, and you get a broader view of the Force. You get a broader view of the struggles Luke has to go through. That obviously, as we learn, through the prequel trilogy, Padawans are usually extremely young when they first learn, and here you have Luke basically in his 20s, early 20s, trying to learn how to control the Force and fight against his emotions and lead with a clear logical thinking with all this, which is obviously by that age is damn near impossible to do. Like the struggle for the hero in this and the character development is chef's kiss, but also Vader, like seeing how his character arc has developed, where you see him being just ruthless in A New Hope, but then now you're seeing him soften a little bit, but more or less because of his obsession, his drive to find Luke and try to turn him to the dark side because of his wanting revenge against Palpatine to try to overthrow him. It's just one of those things where when you fully understand the film, you see just how great it really is. It was peak for special effects. I mean, thinking about the Battle of Hoth and how amazing that was. It's, obviously, yeah, it's not exactly a space fight, but damn near close to it. And that's like one of my favorite scenes in the movie. So it's hard to pass up and say it's not a classic. It's hard to say that's not one of the best movies ever made, possibly the best movie ever made. This is one of those things that we're going to be dead and gone, and Empire Strikes Back is still going to be on number one on people's lists.
Mm-hmm. It's got a relatively cemented legacy, I feel like. That's going to be very, very tough to dethrone. Johnny, take us home, and then I'll give us the rankings out of our combined numbers. I've been trying to keep notes as we go.
I mean, Empire is without a doubt a top 5 film of all time. I don't think anyone can truly debate that fact. It is consistently in, the top 3 to top 5 in most collective, even community-driven sources. It's one of the best films ever made. I don't begrudge people who have it at number 1 on their list. It's that good, and yet at the end of the day, it does something that a lot of other films don't take that chance on, and bad guys won. You walked out of that film in a very dire situation for the rebellion as we knew it. Like, you knew, like, I mean, for me, obviously the films had already been out. So by the time you get there, that there's another movie. So that the good guys are going to have their come up. But, having that film end that way just it's a gut punch, and that's the beauty of it. It set up the next film so great that it told such an amazing start to finish. Every part of that film was amazing. There's no part of it like it. It's one of those things like we rank experiences. Sometimes we talk about experiences, and man, that didn't feel like that long. Like the good movies, they feel short. And this one you feel like you've only just started watching it by the time it's over. You know, it's that good. You're that into it. It's that intense and emotional, and everything about it is so good. You know, from the cinematography to the writing to the directing to the music, everything is a positive. There are no negatives in this film, and you see that. You know, anytime you watch it, it is so good. I mean, for a movie as old as it is to still stand the test of time to today, you know, it's phenomenal. It's amazing, and that's why it, without question, is the number one Star Wars film of all time.
I love that in spite of all of the heavy debating that came around, we ended up crossing the finish line together. So that was pretty cool. So based on our rating system, the way I did it is if something got a 5th place vote, it got 1 point. 4th place got 2 points, and then if it was your number one, it got 5 points. So based on that tally mark, Empire obviously clocks in at number one with a consensus of 20 points. Number 2 is Revenge of the Sith with a total of 15 points accumulated. Number 3 on the list is actually Rogue One with 8 points accumulated. A New Hope clocks in at 4 with 7 total points. And then rounding out the top 5 is The Force Awakens at 6 points accumulated. So it goes Force Awakens, A New Hope, Rogue One, Revenge of the Sith, Empire Strikes Back at the top of the list. That's just based on our aggregated data, but it'd be cool to hear from you all in the chat what you all think of it as well. So join us in the chat, join us in the comments after the fact, after this live stream is over, and give us your 5, and we'll see how it stacks up against what we were able to compile. Dang, that was a marathon, and I tried to keep up with it as best I could, but trying to I don't know. I don't even know where to go from here. That was a lot of fun, and I don't think I've gone through the movies to that kind of depth in quite a while. So I'm glad that this pod has that opportunity to be that kind of an outlet for us. That's really cool.
Damn right.
I do think that concludes the House of Skywalker segment. So unfortunately, that does conclude Johnny's time with us on the show. Johnny, I know that probably went a little bit longer than what you may have
That's all
agreed
good.
to, but thanks for being a part of it, and looking forward to continuing this adventure with you. I think you'll be on next week, even though I won't be.
Mhm.
So we'll the fans of the show will see you in 1 week's time.
And our ships will cross again in 2 weeks.
They shall indeed. Until then, good sir.
I bid you adieu.
On to the House of Stark for another segment here on the show. House Stark, number 1, baby. Dude, we've got a couple of primary things here. Oh, there's Randy. I thought he stepped out for a second. Nope, you were just recompiling the arrangement of the little squares there. This is one thing that we've talked about on Bannerman Banter, and it is worth bringing up again. The idea of a continuation of what happens after Game of Thrones. It was meant to be the Jon Snow series, and it didn't come out that way. There have been other discussions about ways to continue it as well. Right now, we're kind of going back in time. We're going to be getting another season of House of the Dragon. We're going to be getting a Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We're potentially getting the conquering Targaryens when they first settle their dynasty after the fall of Old Valyria. So a lot of what we're looking at potentially getting is going back in time. But you were a big fan in particular of the development of the Snow series, Sean. What do you make of the future iterations of Game of Thrones while we're looking at these past ones?
You know, I wanted it because I felt like as much as Game of Thrones ties things up, I think we all know season 8 was definitely severely rushed in terms of not spreading the story out like they could have. Um, any Thrones sequel that you see in live action is not going to include all of the surviving characters that you'd. I mean, whatever story ends up happening, and make no mistake, one day there will be something that follows up Game of Thrones. Whether it's one character, two characters, or a bunch of them. I just think it's more likely that you see something with a few characters rather than a ton of the surviving characters, unless, and I haven't really been open to this before, if they go the animated route and do something like that as your post Game of Thrones follow up. I think budget wise, that's probably the best choice if they want to get a bunch of the old characters in there, because theoretically you can recast voice actors that sound damn close to the actual actors. I'm just not sure that there's success there or success to be had there. Like, I don't know how the Lord of the Rings animated movie did. I just know in terms of its hype level, it died down very quickly and was basically forgotten about. Um, I just know one day we'll get a sequel. I would just prefer it be true to the actual story rather than follow one or two characters. But the only way to do that might be through animation. And again, I don't know if that translates the same.
So the options, the way I see it, there's three options. You're listing two. I think there's a third option, and I don't think you're going to be a fan of this. So that's why I'm going to throw it to Randy first. he'll be the sounding board.
Fair enough.
Randy, would you rather a continuation follow just one or two characters? I know Arya has been a popular person of interest because she would kind of continue the story forward to a certain extent, but because she's also an adventurer and explorer, we're not bound to the politics of the rest of Westeros by following her. So we could have a limited following of one or two characters as a sequel. We could have animation as a sequel. And here's the third option that Sean may not enjoy all that much. But if we do a story that follows the events after Game of Thrones, considering how long it's been since the series ended and how much the other actors have moved on to new projects, the other option, as unfortunate as may be, is to just do a century time jump and move forward. Don't do anything with these characters and just go so far ahead that we're looking at their descendants. We're looking at new politics. We're looking at new situations. Out of those three, following a certain one or two characters, the animated route or the time jump, which do you think you would most like, and which do you think is most plausible?
So me personally, I feel like the animated animated route would be the way to go. You look at the success that Amazon has had with Invincible, with Legend of Vox Machina. And you have Netflix with whether it's Castlevania or Devil May Cry or Splinter Cell. Like there is a medium out there for animation and being able to tell stories, and with animation, you're not really limited. You can go as far as you want with it. Um, Now, granted, obviously Netflix is leaning more towards anime, but Amazon did not. So it's yes, it's a slippery slope. Yes, it can be a little depending on how you view it. But I do feel like you could get the most out of uh, being able to have as many characters as you want. Now, I'm not against the idea of following a couple characters, just because what you could do with that is you could do a time jump, um, and have them fill in the blanks as they go. Maybe with Arya, one of the reasons she does travel as much as she does is because she didn't want to have to deal with the politics. But you can throw in the occasional flashback here and there to when she was younger and still around Winterfell, and things are just going to shit again. Like there's ways around having to have everybody back. but that's the beauty of storytelling. If you do it right and you do it well, you only need a few characters to make something grand and it'll feel bigger than it really is. If you want to do the time jump and do you could, but you still need uh, that tie back. You need something that's going to tie everything in and give people that sense of we're still in Westeros, not, hey, it's 100 years into the future and oh, technology has changed, because that's going to happen. Uh, but if you don't mention all these characters that you, or at least events that, got you into the series to begin with and start brand new, there's always that big chance it's just going to flop. And obviously, with a name like Game of Thrones, you don't think it will, but if you get to the point of where, say, you pull what Star Wars has done with some of their films or trying to push things forward the way they've done, it could end up just biting them in the ass. And as much as the time jump would be fun, I don't know how successful it would be.
Um, yeah, um, I think for me, a time jump is probably the most realistic option because Kit Harington, Amelia Clark, and so many others have just moved on with their lives. They're just doing other projects. They're doing other things, and there's demand for Game of Thrones. There's demand for that content, and eventually, if you cannot work things out with Kit Harington to do the Snow series, then you've just got to move on from Kit Harington and find the next starlet and find the next way to tell the story of what's going on in that world. And we have already seen that going 100 years in the past is still a workable scenario as long as you have a compelling cast of characters. We didn't know any of these Targaryens. We didn't know any of the Hightowers or anything from House of the Dragon. At least I didn't. I went into it rather blind and still got compelled and still ended up gravitating to certain characters. So I think it's very possible to just move forward 50, 80, 100 years, whatever, and be able to keep telling the story of the politics that's going on in that world, what's going on with Essos, what have you, and just be able to move forward without your main cast of characters. But I know that that's probably not something that Sean would look forward to. Dude, I know you've had to kind of start winding down because the show's getting a little bit longer than we originally thought it would. But um, as we start making our way towards landing this plane, what of those three options do you feel like you would be most okay with?
So I would argue that Kit Harington and Amelia Clark are probably the most available to return. I think the problem is George R. Martin pissed off Kit Harington, so that that's a bridge that might need to be mended. And honestly, I think any Game of Thrones sequel, he should just not be included. Dude hasn't even finished Winds of Winter. Any sequel at this point is going to be based primarily off the TV show and not off of what he writes. Um, which I do believe HBO can do. Like, I don't believe he can nix that, given the deal he signed. But if he has someone at HBO's ear, or someone at HBO's ear, then who knows? I don't mind the idea of doing a sequel set in the future, but not far enough into the future where the characters are dead, but rather heavily aged, you know? We probably leave John at what? He's in his mid 20s when we last see him. You know, if we revisit John in his 50s, early 60s, I wouldn't be against that, even if that means a recast. Um, I don't know if I'd want 100 years, but you could sell me on the time jump. Uh, the thing I worry about with animation, taking away the audience, because I don't think it would have the reach that the show did. I don't think it'd have anywhere close to that. Is Game of Thrones thrives off of visuals, right? Cinematography, set locations. You would have to find a way to do an animated series that gives that kind of justice. I'm not saying animation doesn't do that, but a lot of animation is cookie cutter shit, and this would need to be something special and unique.
You haven't seen Castlevania, have you?
I have not yet, no.
Yeah. I would
You're missing out.
I would highly recommend Castlevania and Castlevania Nocturne. I think those two would definitely give you better hope for set designs and location designs in an animated world. Um, it's some of the best that I've seen lately. It's truly remarkable what certain animators can do if you get the right people on the right project. So I think it's possible. I think if you can get the animators from Castlevania or somebody with similar talents on board, heck, even what is it? Clone Wars got so much better as the years progressed. Like, yeah, the first 2 seasons, 2.5 seasons were pretty cookie cutter, but I was thoroughly engrossed in the storytelling of the last 2 seasons, particularly the final season. There was grit, there was depth, there was impact, there was emotion. And I'm not saying that I want to see Game of Thrones characters look like Clone Wars characters, but I think there definitely is a draw to animation when it's done correctly.
Fair enough.
Will it be the numbers that the original Game of Thrones had? I don't know. I don't know if I've seen the numbers of Castlevania. I don't know if I've seen the numbers of Clone Wars, but I do think that there would be a passionate enough fan base to justify it. What I don't think that Warner Brothers would be brave enough to do is to tell the sequel in animated format. I don't think they would trust such a large project to the animated realm. I think they would want to do a test run with something like 10,000 ships rather than do the sequel as the next thing. Um, so um, if they do animated route, I don't expect it to be a sequel. I think it would just be another story that helps continue the lore and the world building because that's lower risk. You have low risk storytelling with the potential for high reward. I think if they go animated, I think that's the route they go. I think if a sequel happens, it'll either be a direct sequel or a time jump in live action. I think that's the safest bet all around.
Well, hopefully one day we get to find out.
Hey, in the meantime, when the year flips over about a month and a half from now, we'll officially be in a year where 2 different Game of Thrones projects debut, and we will be plenty busy talking House of the Dragon and Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I need to go back and finish that novella so that I know exactly what story they're going to be telling in Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I got about a third of the way into it, maybe halfway, and for whatever reason, never finished it. So I guess the clock is ticking for me. I got to get that done so that I know what I'm going to be talking about when it comes time to actually do those discussions. Let me see. What have we got? Are we on to the gauntlet? I think we're to the gauntlet now, aren't we?
We are. It's gauntlet time.
Man. Okay. So for those of you that had been following us over on the Bannerman Banter show, we have been doing a head-to-head debate of a basically going through all of the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon episodes in order to find what is the unequivocal best episode of Game of Thrones. And we had an elimination project in place. And then we also had the opportunity to revive episodes and bring them back into the rotation if we so decided that that was what we needed to do. And right now, episodes in the winners pool include season 6, episode 9, Battle of the Bastards, House of the Dragon, season 1, episode 9, The Green Council, season 4, episode 2, The Lion and the Rose, season 7, episode 4, The Spoils of War, and season 5, episode 8, Hard Home. So we move on to a continuation of this gauntlet of gradually picking an episode to advance, to move on, to become the next part of that winner's bracket. Once we have gone through every single episode head to head, obviously we'll have a reduced circle of those episodes. We'll take that condensed winners bracket and put them head to head until we only have 2 episodes remaining. Now, the interesting part of this project is it will definitely take us through House of the Dragon season 3. This debate will be continuing as House of the Dragon season 3 goes on, as A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms miniseries 1 goes on. So we will have to incorporate those episodes into the gauntlet as they happen, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. Today's Gauntlet of Thrones is going to be season 8, episode 3, The Long Night, versus House of the Dragon season 2, episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. Plot directly follows the end of the season premiere, depicting the aftermath of the murder of Jaehaerys. In King's Landing, Otto arranges Jaehaerys' funeral to gain the small folk's sympathy and frame the murder as being orchestrated by Rhaenyra. So this is after Blood and Cheese, right? Is that their names?
Yep.
This is the episode that comes after Blood and Cheese, when they are trying to frame Rhaenyra for the actions of those 2 men who were hired by Daemon, versus what could be, I think it could be debated that The Long Night is the best episode of season 8. I think there's a very strong candidacy for that debate. It's the living versus the dead, and it's literally just one giant battle. And yes, it can be argued that it was physically dark and tough to watch and keep up with, but the fact remains that there was a lot that unpacked and a lot that took place and a lot of choreography that took place in that episode. So, Randy, I'll give it to you first. What are your initial takes on The Long Night versus Rhaenyra the Cruel? What they represent for their series and what they represent as individual episodes?
So, with The Long Night, this was the culmination of a lot of people's story arcs. You have Arya fulfilling the prophecy that Melisandre had put before her. You have, you know, you have a heroic moment with Lyanna Mormont, that of her taking down basically a giant. It's You got Theon basically going out with honor. The end of his story, where Bran just says, "You're a good man," and it's like there's all these moments in this, and it's so frenetic and so energetic, and yet yeah, you're right, the episode was dark, but the thing is it was that culmination of everybody saying, got to take out the Night King, and it's all these things compiled into this one episode, and you hit these emotional highs, this emotional roller coasters through the entire thing, because characters you've watched grow, like Arya doing what she did, you're seeing Jorah's death, and you're seeing all these characters finally come together to fight the one true evil in the kingdom and come out on top, but not without their losses. And but then with Rhaenyra the Cruel, you're already on that emotional high of wanting to see, for I guess for you I guess for lack of a better term, you're still shocked of how Rhaenyra loses a son, and you see Daemon wanting to get revenge for her, and then just the fallout from that, to the point of where everything's going to hell for everybody, to the point of where even Otto gets removed as the Hand of the King, which obviously he was the one person holding that entire family together. He was holding everything together. And now you're losing that piece of the pie and it's just like, you got to be kidding me. All this happening in one episode to the point where you're just like, this is going to be the one that starts it all off. This is the powder keg. This is everything getting ready to blow up. And it doesn't have as many moments, doesn't have as much character development, but it's the start of something big. And but still, overall for me, my edge would still go to the Long Night, just because of the significance of that battle and what it meant for everybody, whether they lived or died, whether they had a heroic moment or were cowardly. It just, those moments, everything you've seen for 8 seasons building up to that one big battle, really just, that's why for me that's like that would be the deciding factor, is just because it's 8 seasons where we're only into season 2, and we know we've got more to go. We've got bigger moments coming in the House of the Dragon. We've got bigger battles. We have stuff that we have yet to really see and that we got a glimpse of in season 2. So for me, it's going to be season 8, episode 3 needs to move on.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. This is one of those ones where it's a little bit easier to make that decision, because even in the world of politicking and looking at repercussions and stuff, there are some repercussions that take place in this House of the Dragon episode, but there's definitely episodes where more takes place, where more dominoes fall, where more repercussions hit, where more emotional impact is weighed than what takes place in this particular episode. And so when you're looking at, like you said, the culmination and the emotional impact and the character payoffs, I feel like there's more to that in The Long Night than what we get in Rhaenyra the Cruel. Sean, are you with us in this, or do you have a counterpoint to go against it?
No, I'm just gonna give you my score here, or my vote anyway, not my score. A lot of people give The Long Night a lot of grief because of how dark it is, and the darkness is intentional. The problem is they got a little carried away. After the first 10 minutes, if you can't see what's happening on your screen, I would suggest your TV is fucking terrible. It's the first 10 minutes where, yeah, it's not easy to make out what's going on all the time, but like, this is one of the greatest achievements in TV history, this episode. There is no battle bigger in any episode of TV ever, period. It's cinematic. I forget how long they filmed for. It was like 40 or 50 days, something crazy in the cold. As Randy said, it's the culmination of everything, really. Like, to me, this should have been the end game of it, and the King's Landing stuff should have been dealt with beforehand. But Rhaenyra the Cruel it's quite a good episode of House of the Dragon, but like, that's like sending me into a boxing match right now with how I currently am against primetime Mike Tyson and going, good luck. um, the Long Night and a landslide for me. Like, probably the biggest landslide we've had yet out of any of the matchups.
We've had some really tough ones in the past, but I think this one was pretty clear. So yeah, the Long Night moves on into the winner's circle, justifiably so. And you can be sure to look forward to future Gauntlet of Thrones discussions moving forward, pitting episode against episode until one episode remains. And I think that's all that we've got for this edition of the House of Stark. Sean, I'm going to have to yield to your expertise, because heading over to the next house is not entirely my forte, but that's why there's multiple people on this program, because if I tried to lead this charge, it probably would not go so well. But why don't you take us into House Haddonfield?
Yeah, so this is going to be a short segment tonight, because it's going to be more previewing what I hope will be a standalone video. And that is on Halloween, like we've been advertising. Randy would have to correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say for about 6 weeks now, we were saying we were going to get something story mode wise for the Halloween game. And we sure did. We got some of the locations we'll be going to from the first movie, where you're just seeing the aftermath of what happens and not actually what happened. And we're going to get to visit all those locations. And as Michael Myers in the story mode for the game, and you're also going to have to escape Smith's Grove. And we're not talking just getting on the station wagon. Like, how does Michael get everybody out of the building that night? And the game's also going to go past the first movie, and it won't be Halloween 2. It's completely original. What happens after that? So some pretty big story mode reveals for the game that I'm going to dive more into in a standalone video on the channel in the next week or two. And then on the TV show front, I know there's a lot of impatient people, but it's really important to remember with the video game, Trancas can basically do whatever. They're paying people to go make this game, and there's nobody else in control of the franchise really to stop them from going forward. It's why every Halloween you hear or see the press release, Halloween 1, 4, and 5, we're back in theaters, 1, 4, and 5, 1, 4, and 5. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 1, 4, and 5. And the reason for that is they don't split the rights with anyone for those three movies. They own those three movies. They don't have to go through a Universal or a Warner Brothers or in this case Miramax with what's going on with the TV series and the movie rights right now. Miramax has a hand in them both. No matter how bad Trancas wants to do something with his franchise, they can't unless everybody's on the same page. And right now, it sounds like they're just simply not on the same page. I do think you'll have a 50th anniversary movie. Those talks have already been underway, but that's 2028. People are impatiently waiting for the show, and I get it. But again, it's not something they can just put out on their own. And this is the problem when you get too many chefs in the kitchen. It's hard to get out what you want to get out. It's why George Lucas stayed independent of Hollywood. He wanted to do his shit and not have other people interrupt.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks. Okay.
Next week's show will probably touch on the Scream 7 trailer. We don't have time to do it today. But I also wanted to touch on Welcome to Derry. And I've seen the first two episodes. I don't know if Randy got a chance to see the second episode yet. You did? Okay, so...
Yep, I watched it today.
There's a really big thing that happens in the second episode that I did not know was coming, and I did not know that they were doing. There's this spoiler alert. There's this moment in the second episode where we're meeting these new characters, and they're basically kind of part of the army, to put it short. And it sounds like they're involved in like this secret project. They say the one person's name, and we'll see if anybody catches on to this, but it's Dick Halloran. And I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? And Jade's sitting there going, oh my God, it's the guy from The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought she meant actor, and then I got thinking about it. I'm like, wait a second. Oh no, that is literally the character from the fucking Shining. They have gone and crossed The Shining over with the It franchise. The two are...
They did more than that. Because
specifically...
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So they mentioned Shawshank as well. So that's a part of it. Shawshank is a part of it. And because the whole Stephen King universe, I think they're building towards because Stephen King did technically have his own multiverse, his own cinematic universe, so to speak, or even literary universe, I guess is the best way to describe it, because of Derry by itself. But yeah, they're slowly but surely adding different aspects from his books into the series, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming, like, at all. That was a shocker to me. It adds way, like, I thought the first two episodes were really good, really well done anyways. I don't really like the whole birthing shit that they've done in the last two episodes. That kind of rubs me the wrong way, but other than that, I think it's been very high quality. It's filmed in a town I've been to a bunch, so like I'm noticing locations nonstop. But like the quality's high. It's an HBO project. It should give people some faith in Crystal Lake because it's Brad Caleb Kane as the showrunner. And then you add the Shining crossover into this as well. And it's like, for me, that's huge. The Shining is my favorite horror movie. I think it's the best psychological horror movie ever made. as we know, the Overlook show got canceled years back before it could ever get up. But like, this has me intrigued. Other than the fact we know he's not going to die, this has me intrigued. I really like where this is going, and I did not see this coming at all.
No, I agree with you. I like the visceral nature of both episodes. I've enjoyed that he's not afraid to kill people. Like literally, the kids you think are the heroes, they're gone. It's like, damn, I did not see that coming. And that's the whole point. It's to give you the feeling of no one's safe, and that I love that. I love that anybody can go at any moment. And the the kid actors they got, damn. I mean, they've done an amazing job so far. All the kids have had pretty good chemistry, which is something I think we've only said like last time. I think we said the kids had great chemistry with Skeleton Crew for Star Wars. So it's great to see that it's well written. The visuals are amazing. The music has been great. I love the throwback to the '60s and showing whether it be the racial tensions or just the look and feel of the early '60s. I think it's great, and I'm really digging some of these characters that they've introduced so far. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far, and I can't wait for like the full reveal of Pennywise, since we really haven't seen it yet. They've hinted at it, but they haven't fully given it to him yet.
Yeah, I'm very curious how Dick is going to play into it all, and if he's going to see Pennywise at some point. Just to know that he has that knowledge in him during The Shining, and even furthermore, Doctor Sleep adds a
Mhm.
whole new perspective to it. And yeah, I was already in, but now I'm very in.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go renew my HBO subscription.
It's worth a watch for sure.
Interesting. I mean, I watched the two new It movies when they came out, but if I'm being honest, like I didn't even see Wednesday when the new season of Wednesday came out. So I'm pretty behind on some of my streaming. So I'm gonna have to get caught up on some of those before we hit some of the new Game of Thrones stuff, and then I'm really behind. I don't think I even finished The Last of Us. So like I'm way behind apparently.
Yeah, I'm behind on that, but I guess that'll be my next watch.
Got a little bit to catch up on. Thankfully, none of us have to get caught up on this evening's Flix Busters element. This is one that I am sure all of us have seen multiple times over and have a pretty strong idea on what our opinions of it would be. For those of you who don't know, we talked about it off the top, but it's been a couple of hours since then. Flix Busters is a segment where we take a movie and we break it up into 5 different components. And there's 20 possible points for each component. And we create a score out of 100, basically our own little Rotten Tomatoes, if you will, where we, as podcast hosts, try to determine whether a particular film is a flick or a bust. Hence the term Flix Busters. But the what's the threshold that we set for it, Sean? Was it 60%?
Yes, it's 60.
So if anything is at 60 or above, we'll call it a flick. If it goes below 60%, 59% or below, it is a bust. So the 5 elements that we'll be reviewing things on moving forward, element 1 is the writing and the story. Element 2 is the acting and directing. Element 3 is the production quality, such as the set design and cinematography. The 4th section will be sound, such as sound design and film score. And then there is one element that we're just calling the enjoyment factor. Just how much did you like this film? What's the intangible enjoyment that you had for it? Because there are some movies that may be absolute dog shit, but you still enjoyed the hell out of it. And so it may only get 20 or 30 points from all of the other elements, but you may get it up to around 50 or 60 if you really, really enjoyed it and give it the full 20 out of 20 points in the enjoyment factor. So, for this debut episode, we are doing episode 1, The Phantom Menace, something that all of us have seen multiple times over, and we provided our scores to Sean before the program so that we'd be able to give you all some visual cues as well for the different elements and how we felt about them. And we'll go through them and hopefully be able to compile our numbers and find out whether we think The Phantom Menace is a flick or a bust. Given the placements that we put it during our rankings of the films just a little while ago, I have my doubts that we'll call it a bust, but I am curious what the combined aggregate score may end up being. So, Sean, how do we want to do this? Are we going to reveal it all at once, or are we going around the horn?
We'll go around the horn, but I don't have my laptop died earlier, so I can't see the preview image. I gotta click on it, and whoever's name comes up, take it away on why you had your scores
Okay,
that
so
you
it'll
did.
be it'll be by random. We'll just take a look at the picture, and it'll be like, okay, I guess it's this person's turn.
Yeah, the pictures are named, and I will say this: compiling these ended up being incredibly interesting.
Really?
Wouldn't have guessed this, but here we go. Let's see who we got first.
Okay.
It's you.
Oh, look at me. Look at that. Look at that. So a possible 20 points for each section, and I gave a 13 out of 20 for writing and story. It's not the best story, and it drags at points. But I really like Qui-Gon Jinn. I really like the idea of seeing a young Anakin. I have grown to appreciate the politics of Coruscant, especially after reading slash listening to the Plagueis novel that kind of ties into this and gives it a little bit more depth and meaning. So I did like it. But it's definitely not the best story, and it's definitely not the best Star Wars story. So it got a 13 out of a possible 20 there. For acting and directing, obviously Lucas has a vision and he knew where he wanted to take it. And you've got actually a really good cast of people that have grown on to be phenomenal actors in their own respect and their own right, and to see them in the early stages of their development is really cool. But again, it's not the best acted movie, it's not the best directed movie. It's decent, and it gets a passing grade, but it wasn't amazing, so I gave it a 14. Production, though, the CGI and the worlds that you get, and some of the action sequences and the blending of reality versus what are set pieces and forced perspectives, and um I take a look at the pod race, for example, and it's little matches, I think, with a fan blowing underneath it, but it looks like real people in a stadium. But then the CGI of some of the lightsaber battles or the Gungans versus the battle droids, like, that's compelling to me too. So the production quality got a 17, and then sound design and the score, obviously, Duel of the Fates. Like, need I say more? The sounds that get made, the droids that are beeping, the sounds of the pod racers going through the desert. There are so many great pieces of just sound design combined with the film score. It's a perfect score. And then I talked about how much I just enjoy this film in general. And it's a 20 out of 20. Like, I probably enjoy Phantom Menace more than most of the other Star Wars films, and definitely it's the most enjoyable prequel for me. So that also got a perfect 20 out of 20. When you combine all of those numbers together, I ended up giving Phantom Menace an overall score of 84 possible points out of 100.
Yeah, I think that's a very solid score. I really wasn't sure where you were going to land with this movie. I knew you did not like it, but I wasn't sure how much you appreciated it, and I was pleasantly surprised how high your score was.
Well, I mean, I've got it in my top 5 listed at number 5. So I think an 84 out of 100 is an appropriate top 5 score.
All right, next up is me, apparently.
It's like a roulette of graphics.
I went with 13 for writing and story for the same reason Zach did. Like, I like the Phantom Menace a lot. It's grown on me. I wasn't the biggest fan of it when it came out. The pod race had me, and the lightsaber duel had me, but I thought the rest of it fell a little short of where I was looking. And as time has gone on, I have definitely come to appreciate it for sure. I like what Zach mentioned about the Plagueis book, although it's Legends now. It really does add to the Phantom Menace, in my opinion, quite nicely. 15 for acting and directing, which might be a little high. I was debating between 14 and 15, and I went 15. I probably gave them a break there. Production quality is 20. Phantom Menace was so innovative at the time. The whole sequel trilogy was. I don't think George Lucas gets enough credit for what the sequel trilogy did in terms of really bringing in digital technology. Like all your big DC films and Avengers films that follow that up within a 5 or 10 year span, none of it's possible without the Star Wars sequel trilogy. So, 20 on production quality, 20 on sound design and score. Like, and it's probably honestly, don't be surprised when we do Attack of the Clones next and then Revenge of the Sith, if the sound design and score is 20 on all of them. That's just how I feel about the prequels in terms of that. And then the enjoyment factor is an 18, which gave me if I'm doing my math correct, a overall score of 86.
86. That's what I got. Yep.
Which then brings us to Randy.
So yeah, obviously, some of my scores are a little bit higher than they probably should be, but I'm also not exactly as knowledgeable in terms of like certain types of story and writing and things of that nature, directing, whatever, and things like that. But story wise, for me, it's it was good enough to engage me. It was awesome seeing Obi-Wan, Eddie as a Padawan, and obviously Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul. Like certain characters really just stood out to me in terms of their story. Obviously, Lucas with the writing isn't always the greatest, but this was definitely this is definitely better than what he did with Attack of the Clones, and you'll see that that'll be reflected in my score when we do that one. So that's, but I gave it a 15 just because it was an overall solid start to a new trilogy. Even though it's like we know the end game, but here is everything that leads up to the end game, and so that's where we're starting as a 15. Acting and directing, again, Lucas doesn't do a horrible job, but it's also not a great job in terms of directing, just because Lucas is better world builder. I mean, that's where his bread and butter is. It's always been is creating that world that we just want to be there. We want to live in it. Acting, obviously. If we take out Jar Jar and if we take out Anakin, everybody else does a fairly decent job. The only issues I really ever had in terms of the acting would have been basically the Gungans and Anakin. But of course, we've said it many times. If you're not given the best script, you only can do so much. If the director doesn't really know how to use you very well, you're only going to be able to do so much. So I can't really fault Jake Lloyd for how he brought Anakin to life. I can only complain about how George wrote the character and directed him. As far as production and quality, obviously this is one of the things that Star Wars always seems to get right, is whether it be, well, at least prior to Disney. Let's take that back a little bit. Prior to Disney, George always had a great eye for world building. He always knew how he wanted to create his worlds, whether it be through miniatures, blue screen, green screen, on location, on soundstage. He always had a way of getting the best out of people and making it look great. I mean, you can't fault this movie for its special effects. They did a great job. Obviously, for the time going up against the Matrix for the Academy Award for special effects. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. That tells you all you really need to know. Sound design and score, that's always going to be. It was perfect because Star Wars. That's one thing Star Wars always blows out of the water is the John Williams score and the sound design, whether it be blasters, lightsabers, Naboo starfighters, the droids, all of that. Everything just comes together in a symphony of that's just chef's kiss as always. And enjoyment factor, saw this in theaters when it first came out, and I still feel the same way every time I see it, just because there's just so much that this film did right that it just keeps me coming back for more. And my overall score ended up being an 85.
We're all like in the mid 80s with this, which is genuinely surprising, but also like in a good way. Like out of the three of us, it amounted to 255 out of a possible 300 points. That's a very, very solid 85%. I knew that I was gonna probably skew it a little bit, and I'm pleasantly surprised to find out that you guys actually skewed it up. I had the lowest rating out of anybody here tonight. That's a pleasant surprise. I'm glad that it was that popular.
I was stunned. We were all basically like 1 point, 84, 85, 86. I was like, oh, wow. Like, it's one thing when you're close to 2 people, but when you're that close to 3 people, that's wild.
It's a good movie, man. It deserves more love. So I'm
Hey, it's
glad
a happy accident the way I look at it.
Yeah, for real. Absolutely. And it's a happy way to close out this inaugural debut of House of the Empire with a pleasantly, surprisingly good score of episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Be sure to join us every Monday here on this channel for a new live episode. I'm here every other week. Sean and Randy should be here every week with Johnny rotating in and other special voices rotating in when they're able to. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications to all of this stuff. And I don't know if you saw it during the main discussion points, but there is a Patreon as well. And that was in our frame on our lower third. And it should be in the description. It should be available on the channel and other places like that. If you want access to some bonus content, you can find it there as well. Randy, where can the folks find you when they're not finding you here on this new podcast?
So over on X at Giggity Giles, since we are in the thick of the NFL season, weekly, the Sports Brew has been recording. So if you are about people just drinking, bullshitting, talking sports, and just kind of just having fun with whatever seems to tickle our fancy, because let me tell you something, some of the shit we have discussed, if you're not rolling, something's wrong with you. I mean, it's been a lot of fun so far this season, but you can Google Sports and Brew and find us no problem.
That's awesome. Sean, what about you, bud?
Yeah, don't ask me about sports for like the next 3 months because I'm not going to talk about them. And if you know, you know. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. If you watch
I
certain
know.
sporting events this weekend, then you know.
I know.
Arguably the most deflating loss in World Series history, the way that shit went down. So, yeah. I'm still recovering and probably will be for a very long time. Look, big shout out to our channel sponsors, Ryan over at Kaulignation, one-stop shop for all things Kaulignation, Digger Nation, SVG Nation, and all things NASCAR, Jesse Storytime Spectacular, great place for pop culture talk and interviews, Jason over at Backtrack Cinema, and Dustin. Without him, it'd be hard to be here. I know he signed up for Bantam and Banter, but we ran it past him about the show change, and he was on board and other people were on board, and we're just really, really happy with the direction of things and excited for next week. And now the only thing I can really tell you about next week is Flix Busters will be Attack of the Clones.
Well, be sure to be on the lookout for that and for announcements on everything else that's going to be talked about here on next week's live episode. But that is going to officially do it for us on this almost 3-hour long premiere episode of House of the Empire. For Johnny, who was on earlier, and for Randy and Sean, I am Zach, thanking you for going on this little marathon with us, and we'll see you next week when the Empire returns.
For the love of fandom and the escapism of pop culture.
To the seas of Naboo.
And the direwolves of Winterfell.
All the way to the streets of Haddonfield.
Join us as we call the banners for the House of the Empire.